Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the double crochet stitch. I'll be using Lion Brand Hometown USA and a furls hook. Let's get started. So you can make the double crochet stitch all on its own into a chain or as part of a larger stitch pattern. To demonstrate, I'm going to start here with a slip knot on my hook, and then I'm just going to go ahead and chain a few stitches so we have something to work into when we make our double crochets. Let's see, that's probably enough. Now, when you make a row of double crochets, there are a few different ways to begin, and a lot will depend on the pattern you're following. Many times it will tell you to skip the first 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, those are the 3 closest to the hook, and start working in the 4th chain. And then those skipped 3 chains will count as your first double crochet. This will work the same way when you work later rows as your turning chain. Alternatively, some people and some patterns, it simply works better to chain 2, skip those for the first row, work into the 3rd one, count those 2 as just a turning chain and not as your first stitch. So how you work the very first stitch of double crochet will depend somewhat on what sort of pattern you're following. If you're making up your own, just making something simple like a scarf or a washcloth, you can experiment to see what works best for you. I'm going to go ahead and do it the standard way, skipping 3 so that they count as the first double crochet of the row and working into the 4th chain. I prefer to work into the back hump of the chain when I work into a chain, but you can work under the top 2 loops if you prefer. It's totally up to you. So to make a double crochet, the first thing I'm going to do is yarn over from back to front with my yarn, skip those 3 chains, go into the 4th chain with my hook, like so, yarn over, pull up a loop. At this point you'll see I have 3 loops on my hook. So I'm going to yarn over from back to front again, pull through those first 2 loops, and then stop here for a minute with 2 loops still on my hook, yarn over again, and pull through those last 2 loops. And that is our first real double crochet. Let's do it again. We're going to yarn over, go into the next chain or stitch, or wherever indicated, yarn over, pull a loop up through that stitch, yarn over again, pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, yarn over again, pull through the last 2 loops. Let's do one more because we're down at our last chain already. We'll yarn over, go into the last chain here, just so happens to be, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now we're ready to begin row 2, assuming again we're just working in plain double crochets. And this is the turning chain, so that's where you need to make a decision. You can chain 3, which is the standard thing, and count that as your first double crochet. If you do that, then you'll want to skip the first stitch, because this is your first double crochet of that row, and start working into the 2nd one. So let's do it that way for this row. Once again, it's yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, if you have counted that first chain 3 as a stitch, like we did here with those skipped 3 chains that we had at the beginning of the first row, then you'll need to make sure to go back in there with your last stitch of the next round. So I'll yarn over, and I'm going to go under the top 2 loops of that chain, that very first chain we skipped, which would be the top of our fake double crochet. There we are. Getting under those top 2 loops can be a little difficult, the top 2 loops of that turning chain, but you just get right under those with your hook, and then yarn over and make your double crochet the usual way, like so. So if you are counting that chain 3 as a stitch, you need to make sure you've got that many stitches in each row, and that's an easy one to miss. So especially as you're learning this stitch, be sure to count your stitches each row. Now I do want to show you real quickly one of the alternatives. There are several alternatives out there instead of the chain 3 start for double crochet. One of my favorites and one of the easiest to do is to chain 2. Do not count that as a stitch, so you make your first double crochet right in the first stitch of the previous row. So then when you work across with this method, you would make sure not to work a stitch into that chain 2 because that does not count as a stitch. Otherwise, all the double crochets are the same. Yarn over, whoops, Go into the indicated stitch, whether that's the next one or one down the row, just depends on the pattern. Yarn over again, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And that is the basics of the double crochet. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you'll give it a try and increase more of your crochet skills. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe.